Well, hello there, and welcome to the Second Life Book Club. This is, in fact, our premiere show. My name is Draxtor Dupre. I'm your host, and we have a full house. So I'm getting inundated with IMs. Folks want in. We had to restrict the access to restrict the hecklers, but we might move to a bigger venue next time. So this is a new show format. We will do this once a month with a panel, and we might do this bi-weekly and maybe even weekly at the 10 a.m. Second Life hour. I will be here at 10 a.m. SLT for sure every Wednesday to discuss books and love for reading. And the theme today is writing and selling books in the age of social isolation. Um, and I thought about this theme because we know that the mainstream media and maybe the general public believes that we Second Lifers are experts in the topic of social isolation. But now we're all shut-ins, right? All right. My opening monologue is not killing. Uh, but neither is
I
Stephen.
laughed. I laughed.
I
Thank you,
did.
Lisa.
I
Well,
laughed.
you know what? I watched Stephen Colbert broadcasting from home, and he's great. But if he doesn't have the live audience, but we have a larger live audience than Stephen Colbert has actually. So today we invited four wonderful authors, and people do know that I'm a book nerd, and I do actually read outside of uh, work. You know, well, I walk with the dog, and I care about my family, and we do family stuff. But I do read, so I read. I was like, my family is watching this. My dad is watching this. Like, you haven't been to. Okay. Anyways, let
Thanks
me
for killing
introduce.
it, Drax.
Let me introduce the panel, and I'm going to go in alphabetical order. So we have SL Huang, who also
Hello.
goes by Lisa. Hello, Lisa. Now, Lisa is the author of the Cass Russell series, which I wasn't aware of. Ken told me about that, and I'm devouring these books. These are fast-paced thrillers. These are near future conspiracy thrillers with a female lead. There's lots of explosions, lots of killing, lots of math, and it's absolutely awesome. And Lisa was also just nominated. I was informed earlier for a Hugo Award. Is that right?
That's right. Yes, that just happened yesterday.
Congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
on the other couch, we actually wanted to name this show Draxter on the Couch. Um, on the other side of on the other couch, we have C.B. Lee, and C.B. Is an author of young adult fiction, post-apocalyptic, I guess, in a post-apocalyptic world where superheroes fight against villains, and it's all um, kind of a media ploy. So I'm spoiling it here. The Sidekick Squad series, absolutely fantastic. And I wrote on bookshop.org that if I had, you know, young adult material like this when I was growing up, I mean, I would have like, I don't know if I turned out better, probably. So CP was nominated for the Lambda Literary Award. She was a finalist. This is an award that is awarded to stories that deal with sexual diversity and gender diversity, and the stories are magnificent stories that put diversity up front and center. Hi, CB, how are you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me.
By the way, where are you? You're in Los Angeles. I know that
Mhm.
we're all on lockdown. And Lisa, where are you?
I'm in Wisconsin, so we're on lockdown here as well. But I'm more concerned about this election that just kind of didn't happen and kind of did happen. So yeah, it's been a bit crazy here.
I have 30 minutes reserved for politics at the end.
No,
I'm
we
That is
on
don't
not
have to
college.
enough,
talk
but
about it. I am very happy not to talk about
You will see the room empty so fast you won't believe it.
it.
Pastor that with my jokes. Ken Liu is sitting right next to CB. Ken is a winner of many awards: Nebula, Hugo. I lost count. Ken writes fantasy, epic fantasy, the Dandelion Dynasty, and short story collections, and also Star Wars. The latest book is The Hidden Girl and Other Stories. Absolutely fantastic short story collection. And Ken was already in VR with the headset, but now you're a tiger. So how do you feel about Is that better here with the tiger, with the cowboy tiger?
I love both. This is pretty awesome. I mean, I kind of wish I can walk around all day like a tiger. Should make me feel a lot better. Anyway.
But you don't have to. You don't have to have the swim goggles. I mean, not the goggles. I mean, the ski goggles. I always call them, right? The VR
Yeah, yeah.
goggles.
Right, which leaves these marks on my face. My daughter's like, "Daddy, what have you been doing?" And it's very hard to explain.
On the other side of me, on the other couch next to Lisa, is Matt Ruff. I've become a Matt Ruff addict. I read all his books except for one, not because I didn't like the subject matter, but I just
Whoops,
ran
I
out
just
of time.
lost. I think I just lost.
Oh, Matt, can you hear us? 1, 2, 3. Uh-oh. Can you guys hear Matt?
I cannot.
Okay. Matt may have issues.
Wait,
with
I can hear you now.
Okay, good.
Oh, okay, you're back.
Sorry about that. I lost you for a second. I'm not sure what happened.
Very good. So you didn't hear that I said that I actually hate your books, and the only reason why I invited you is that you look really cool in your avatar.
Oh no, I missed that entirely. But thank you.
Uh, Matt is absolutely awesome. My wife is reading him too now, and so Matt, author of many books, Lovecraft Country, is developed or is actually in production for an HBO series, and his latest is 88 Names, deals with virtual reality. And the cool thing about Matt is also that the budget that I have for the avatars, he's very cheap. So he got this
Yes.
awesome avatar for total bargain basement pricing. It's like
Well, I
200.
couldn't resist. It's the hat that just makes it, the little baseball cap. So yeah.
Matt, can you move your mouse cursor over the screen? Then your head will move a little bit.
Will it?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not. I am moving it over the screen, but my head doesn't seem to be moving.
Okay, click the escape button on your keyboard and then move it. There you go.
Oh,
Look.
okay. Now there we go. Okay.
Look. Take a good look at the audience there. Look. Oh. Oh.
Okay. Learning new things.
I think we should start talking about books. We're like, oh, look at these out. So today, I want to, and I will repeat this, bookshop.org, which actually Matt brought to my attention, is kind of a alternative to Amazon. They give away 75% of their profits to local bookstores and publications, bookshop.org. And I'll put links over the course of the hour into the local chat directly to the books of these authors here, because as we're all on lockdown and as Amazon is actually scaling back, I wasn't aware of this, scaling back with book delivery because they prioritize food now. Bookshop.org is coming online, and again, I mean, it's not only a great alternative to Amazon, it's actually sort of the anti-Amazon in that they strengthen local bookstores. So if you're ordering anything today or in the future from these authors or other authors, please go to bookshop.org, and I'll put in some links. So let's see here. Let's get started. Publishers and publicists are going nuts. I wrote this down. I have these cue cards here. My wife wrote them. Publishers are going nuts. They make you do weird things. Let's make the round. What is your publicist? So what is your publicist suggesting you guys do to sell books now that you can't go on tour? Did you have tours canceled? I want to hear some stories about, like, do they make you do like online courses or something, or reading? And let's maybe start with, how should we start here? Let's start with the ladies. Let's start with you, Lisa. Here, do you have any requests from your publisher, your publicist, like, you got to go out there, you got to go on YouTube?
My publicist is actually, she's fantastic. She's wonderful to work with, and she's very flexible in terms of what I want to do if I express preferences. So it's actually been really exciting. She and I have been sort of brainstorming together of doing all sorts of online events. So I'm doing this, I'm doing Reddit, I've got a couple of other like online stuff that we're sort of starting to put together. There are all these virtual book conventions that are just starting to put everything together to go online. And I'm actually really excited about this. Like, I mean, I knew about Second Life, but I'd never played around with it before, and coming in here and getting an avatar and meeting all of you, it's just been really exciting. And I'm so glad that, I wish it were under better circumstances, but I'm so glad I got to do something like this.
That's actually how we feel as well. And I don't want to, make this into sort of a second life like celebration or whatever. But I do feel that the fact that we can be here in our embodiment and with this live audience, I mean, we do have 70 people on Facebook watching and 50 people on YouTube watching. I don't know how many on Twitter, and that's cool. But to be here in the presence is really something that. A lot of psychologists, I read a long thread on Twitter of psychologists say, people feel really weirded out about being on Zoom, being on camera, and being sort of disembodied at the same time as they are, as they have to be on all the time, right? I mean, I could be running around here with a Bluetooth headset, frankly, in my pajamas, but my avatar looks cool. CB, how do you get on with the? Did you have any events canceled? How does that impact you? Do you have any suggestions from a frantic publicist calling you every day? What's your situation?
I mean, my 2020, I have a short story coming out this year, and but my other projects haven't been announced yet. So, but I did have a few appearances and conventions lined up for like early spring. But I was gonna. I think my next upcoming ones were like, they were canceled, and I was set to host like a number of people were launching their new books, so I was going to be in conversation with a few folks. But I think it's just a matter of like transition to, everyone's still trying to work and still trying to like support books, and especially in this time, art is something that's incredibly important.
Yes.
We don't really think about how much we turn to art, whether it's, a familiar show or a new show or a book, or you want to disappear into another world. And so having like, I find myself reading more. I've been, working from home and been working remotely, and just like, what's interesting is like what you were talking about, like being here in Second Life and in the virtual world. It's been fun to try and explore that new medium. It's something I haven't like I knew about Second Life, but hadn't tried much of it. And then Drax and I did a virtual interview before, and that was really fun as well. Just, it's exciting to learn more about it, and the space to like, the difference between like hanging out with someone over Zoom, like when you have like a large group of people, and it's
right.
It's awkward. It's weird because it's not, and it feels exhausting because it's not like you're at a party where you can have like an individual conversation with like one or two people and then take a break and then like walk around. You're just like on being broadcast to like all 10 different people. And so you somehow have to figure out how to have a conversation with like all 10, or you don't. And then it feels like a work meeting.
It feels you have to be on or in some sort of like big floor space office, like an open office plan. Matt, I want to throw this to you. Does it impact? Thank you, CB. These are and I love your avatar. By the way, again, CB is probably the most expensive avatar. So you can pay me back by next year. No, I'm just joking. Matt, does this impact you? Your book just came out, and we talked a little bit about this off the air. You were also scheduled to appear. I mean, does it even make sense, I wonder, to do appearances, even if they were possible? Do you have numbers that when you appear in a bookstore, how does that relate to sales? Is the publicist worried about that?
I mean, what's funny is that book tours have been getting smaller and smaller in the years that I've been writing. Unless you're, Neil Stephenson or Neil Gaiman, or it almost doesn't make sense for them to fly you across country, because the whole point of doing, the bookstore events in part is to drive local media, and so in a way, doing online events makes more sense. I mean, it's wonderful to get out and meet fans and meet booksellers, and I my whole career, I've really relied on hand selling. So I love to meet independent, bookstore owners and stuff. But in a weird way, if you're just looking for efficiency, you reach so many more people online. And for once, my timing was really good because this book is about, it's set largely in virtual reality. I had more online events than I would normally have probably planned for already set up even before the coronavirus became a big deal. So, right. We did have to postpone a number of real life events that I'm sorry I didn't get to go to, and I'm still not sure how it's going to impact the overall sales of the book, but at least I don't feel like I'm trapped. I've been able to.
If it only drives local media, and if they don't show up, I mean, then it's basically worthless. I mean, from a marketing standpoint, no.
From a marketing standpoint, I mean, but you still love to go out and meet people and you sign people's books. That has long-term benefits, and it's just a lot of fun to do. So I regret not being able to do that, but. The thing is, yeah, because I did 88 names, one of my rewards for finishing the book, I actually bought myself a VR headset. And so when, I answered your invitation, I was able to, I had the gear I needed to do that. And that was really quite a neat experience. And I think, no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Ken, I think had a similar experience. I don't know, Ken, if you rewarded yourself, because Ken is another author that I approached and who had his own headset, because headsets are a limitation for my other venture, like a one-on-one interview. And I'm so glad that we can do this here because it's so much more inclusive. But Ken, let me throw this to you about the importance for sales, and I want to make this very clear. I am an artist and a book nerd, right? So I'm not in the marketing department, but so I completely get what Matt is saying. I mean, that the fact that you can interact with fans, this would be my number one priority too if I were a writer. I'm just fascinated about the marketing side of things, where they are in this, arguably a hamster wheel that has come to a standstill in some ways. So Ken, I know that you were asked to do readings on YouTube.
So I was in a weird situation. I mean, when this entire outbreak occurred here in the US, I was literally just starting my book tour. So this was in support of The Hidden Girl and Other Stories, and it was happening at the end of February and the beginning of March. And as I was traveling around, things were getting more and more dire. I remember that when we were flying on airplanes, I was starting to wipe down the seats and just refusing drinks from the flight attendants, just to protect them as well as myself. And in DC, at Politics and Prose, when I was doing one of my last events before I canceled everything, the staff was extremely professional, and they came up with all sorts of plans to help things. For example, they had me pre-sign the books so that we don't have the situation of people congregating in one line right afterwards. They set up the system so that the microphone wasn't being passed around. They asked people to stand with the table between me and them. So again, try to minimize, we were practicing social distancing even at the event. And plenty of hand sanitizer on hand. So I thought, they were doing the best they could, given the circumstances. And this was right before the lockdown started happening across the country. So as soon as I returned to the Boston metropolitan area, where I had more events, I just started calling around and canceling them. And I even persuaded my publicist to not go to the Seattle Comic-Con. Because I thought this was going to get much worse, and we should not go out and I said that we should not pretend like we're going to make this happen. At the time, very few people were pulling out. This was before places were pulling out, and I said, no, we should not go. We need to stop acting like everything's going to be normal. It's not. So of course, my tour stopped. Everything ended. I had to sort of scramble and figure out what to do. I mean, I like in-person events. Like Matt was saying, from a strict commercial publicity point of view, I really don't think they make a huge difference, but that's not the real reason to do them. And I mean, I enjoy doing them because every time I go, I make connections with fans and with readers who tell me, how my stories actually made a difference to them, brought them joy at a moment when they were sad and whatnot. And that sort of thing really energizes you as a writer, because when you're writing and you're all by yourself and you have no idea if what you're doing makes any difference at all. And then to go out and meet people and talk about it, it's a real important thing. And so now I can't get that. I have to figure out some other way to connect with people. And I love the fact that I'm doing.
I know
this
how you have you're a tiger. You can be here. You can be on the rodeos. You can hang out with the
There you go. There you go. So you get to do Second Life. You get to do virtual reality. You get to do class appearances. I'm doing some discussion groups with college courses, all sorts of things. So in some ways, it's pushed me to try different things that I wouldn't have done before, just to see, and it's been good.
Right. Lisa, I want to throw this to you, because the dark side here, and I really don't want to minimize this, because people are really struggling with this sort of solitude. And it's interesting. My neighbors here in the building, we get along really well, and the neighbor just emailed me early and said, "How are you doing? Our son is getting stir crazy." And I go like, I'm working 15-hour days, frankly, because of the uptick in SL interest and other things. But there is an issue here with sort of being locked, quote unquote, locked up and the solitude. But writers, they need solitude. So let's make the round here. Lisa, how do you feel about that? Is that a blessing and a curse? Do you now have more time to focus, or is the anxiety about the situation?
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. The anxiety and the stress are really definitely having an impact on my work. It's a lot harder to focus and to concentrate. I keep wanting to, check the news and all that. It's been pretty rough since things started getting worse and worse here in the United States. I'm an introvert and a homebody, and I'm a writer, so I work from home. So my work days have not actually changed that much in their logistics. I'm still getting up, but sitting down at the computer to write. But certainly, I'm feeling the stress of not being able to go outside. I'm high risk, so I can't even go to the grocery store, and I'm just trying to stay very tightly buttoned down. But there was a funny reverse effect that happened, especially in the first few weeks that most people were starting to go to work from home, which is that I have a lot of very good friends, which I feel very fortunate about, but they're not used to working from home.
They asking you for advice.
Well, it's not so much that as suddenly they had the whole day on their hands, and they were like messaging me, calling me, asking to video chat like in the middle of my work day. And I usually don't see people that much. So like the first few days or that first week that most people were starting to like domino effect to go to work from home and lock down, I had like more social interaction than I usually have in a month. And I was talking to my family, and I was saying, I'm getting socially overstimulated on lockdown.
Yep.
But I love my friends, so of course I wanted to see them, and we wanted to support each other.
This is funny. Stella Wicks in the local chat says social intrusion. That is really a great term. I mean, I feel exactly the same when people like they contact me and go like, "Hey, let's chat," and then no, I gotta get stuff done. But the anxiety is real. CB, how about you? Let's make the rounds. And I just wanted to say, please, the other panelists, please do rudely interrupt and chime in and talk over each other if you want to chime in here. One of the drawbacks, I guess, here is that the cues, we cannot lift our hands. I think for next time, I'm going to have a hand lifting animation, like in school, where you're like, "Hello, teacher, ma'am, I need to go to the bathroom." So we're working on that.
But you could do the Tom Cruise animation, so you can jump on the couch. That would be kind of cool.
Absolutely, actually, yes.
Very nice.
Please
Amazing.
do it a couple more times. Matt, camera on Matt, camera one, camera one.
Matt, you're facing the inside of the couch now. That's great. I love that your tentacle monster also has a hat. floppies.
Yeah, those are. I was afraid if I jumped, I was going to end up off center. But well, what can you do?
No, do it. Please do it one more time. I mean, you must have practiced this, and I was amazed.
That is beautiful.
I have done interviews over the years with folks from different walks of life and expertise, and some say, "Oh, just get me sort of an off-the-shelf avatar," and then others, like Matt, for example, 2 days later he sends me 50 different marketplace listings. So he must have spent a week on marketplace looking for avatars. I'm kidding. Now he's down on the couch. Okay, for the rest of the show, Matt is gonna look how good he is. It's amazing.
That's great. Yeah, for me, like I also work full time at a university. So in my regular routine, I juggle like my writing life and my day job with where there's a very specific delineation between when I'm working for the university or when I'm working on my writing, and then usually when I work on my writing, that's specifically on weekends or in the early morning before I head to my other job. But now that I'm working entirely at home, my office is now like all of my offices are in the same place. So learning how to like differentiate like where I'm doing my writing, and oftentimes I'm a very social writer, so
You like to write in cafes.
Yeah, like I love meeting up with friends and like going to coffee shops and working in a coffee shop with another person, because I get that accountability. Otherwise I would just like endlessly scroll through the internet on my own. And writing with other people helps create that structure and discipline. I've been trying to find better ways. I think like the differentiation, like create more boundaries between like my work life, my personal life, like my writing life. And knowing like I try to like create like, okay, this is my desk when I'm doing like my day job. This is my desk when I'm doing my writing, and try to do that all in different spaces that are
Wow, this is a
even
good
if it's
idea.
like, yeah, even if it's just like, okay, this corner of the living room is where I'm doing that work, and then this corner of my studio is where I write. So I'm not trying like, because it does like when it mixes up for me, it really messes with my progress.
CB, this is awesome. This is actually awesome, and sorry to step on you, because I would like the others also to share their writing techniques. This is something that I find super fascinating. I'm trying to push the Pomodoro technique on my 16-year-old. It's not working, but sorry, CB, keep going.
I've used the Pomodoro before too, and that's worked pretty well for me when I was like, if I'm just doing writing. But I think for me, having like the different spaces. Question from the chat, Anne's asking if the pandemic's affecting my work in progress and the storyline. Maybe. I mean, it makes me feel much. Pomodoro is a technique where you set a timer and you work for like 20 minutes and then take a break for 5.
CB, don't worry. Ignore the local chat. I will.
Okay.
I will weave
You're
that
gonna
into the
respond to that?
conversation.
Okay.
Yeah. This is probably for all of us. Real quick, Peter is saying there are free hand raising animations on the SL Marketplace. I have my people on it. And Charnock, who is in the audience, maybe the camera can zoom into Anne. She is scheduled for the panel next month. A wonderful author. Highly encourage you to check it out. Bookshop.org. I'm not getting paid by bookshop.org, by the way. Anne Charnock is asking, is the coronavirus likely to affect your work in progress? Are you going to make changes to your storylines? This is a question that I have here on my list as well. Real quick, before we go there, technique-wise, real quick, Ken, Matt, what do you guys have in terms of writing technique? Has anything changed with the lockdown?
I'll just go quickly. I mean, before all of this happened, I used to go to a co-working space, and that's how I maintained some separation between my writing work and being home. I go out to a co-working space 4 days a week, Of course, now that's impossible, so I've had to work from home. And honestly, I haven't gotten anything done. It's I'm not very productive at all.
Hanging out
And
in virtual reality. I actually saw you on an airship a couple of days ago
oh
in Second
yeah,
Life.
you did. I mean, I'm okay with that. It's just an extraordinary time. It's emotionally difficult, of course. You're concerned about all the people around you and the people you care about. I have friends who've gotten sick and couldn't get tested, and it's just not. They don't even know if they have it, and the order is, unless you really, really are very sick, stay home. Do not come to the hospital. And so that's what they've been doing, and it's just incredibly scary. But meanwhile, quote unquote, life must go on, and so I try to spend time with the kids and try to do what I can. If it's not work, it's not work. It does, in fact, affect what I write. Of course, I think it will affect all of us in some ways. We're all going to have to think about it. I don't know the full impact of this. I'm waving my hands about vaguely of all this will not be understood for, I think, a long time. We're just going to have to figure out what the psychic trauma means. But I did finish one story that I was in the process of writing before it all started, and I finished it after the lockdown started. And I can see that it was changed. It's not directly changed. It's a little darker. There's a hint of it. I mean, I guess the closest thing I can describe is if you go back and look at the art that was produced during the time when 9/11 happened, and you sort of compare the tone. You can see something changed collectively in the way we envision the future and think about the present and talk about how life is. And the story that I just finished is like that. There's a hint of it in there about what all this means. And of course, we can talk about how this changes the way we think about things in a grand way, although I think it will take a long time before we really fully process it. So that's me.
Is this something that affects you too, Matt, in terms of storyline? Let's stay here with the storylines. And it occurred to me that in your Sewer, Gas, and Electric, which I totally love, there is a pandemic that kills 99% of Black people on the planet and only leaves people with green eyes alive. So
I mean, in terms of but that was not a response to an external event. That was a plot device meant to do something very specific in the novel. But no, I mean, for me, I kind of think about this as Ken says. This kind of reminds me of 9/11 happening, and I remember a friend of mine just being very freaked out by it. And my thought at the time was that I'm not going to rush to try and do something about this. I'm going to think about it for a while, and I'm going to watch what other people do and how other people react to it. Then I'm going to try and write something relevant but different. So that's why I didn't actually start working on The Mirage until 2006, 2007, which is that was my 9/11 novel. So and I think year two, it's way too soon. I mean, the thing I always think about, I don't know if you remember, The West Wing did a very special 9/11 episode, and it was dreadful, but they did it it was like a couple of weeks after the 9/11 happened, and it was just pure reaction, and it does not hold up at all. So I'm not going to try and write about this for a while. I'm going to wait and see what happens and think about it, and then maybe I'll have something to say.
And I don't want to make you out as sort of the goofy satirist here, because for me, what you're writing is very deep and goes to the core of the human condition. And if people here want to pick up Sewer, Gas, and Electric, the plot about the pandemic that kills Black folks enables you in the story to go very, very deep about I would say stereotypes of especially African Americans, because I mean it plays in New York and in America.
It's a hard thing to describe now without sounding totally
Exactly. I was just realizing as I said
give it a look and see if it's your thing. But that is it is kind of very dark satire, and I don't know how that would play right, particularly right at this moment. But
But this brings us to a good point. I mean, I guess this is what everybody's cup of tea is. I mean, I have a friend who is suffering from depression, and it goes in and out, and she literally cannot read anything but basically romance novels. And I have to admit, I mean, I was kind of a snob about romance novels, and I realized, you know what, that's really what she needs. And I kept recommending her Infinite Jest. Oh yeah, there's Madame Psychosis. She has a radio show, and she goes, no, please. Um, so I mean, how about that? I mean, it's a legitimate way to engage with reading material, right?
Yeah, I think romance definitely has like there's so many great stories out there, and I think I find it very difficult to engage with. I'm working on finishing my series, and it's like a dystopian world, and so particularly working on that book and all the like traumas the characters have gone through have been challenging. And just in my own reading material, I definitely understand like wanting like the escapism and like the fun, and I think romance novels bring like so much joy to people, and there's so many like infinite ways where you get to explore like not just romance but like um fun like stories, fluffy stories. There's room for people to like escape into so many different kinds of worlds.
Mm.
um as a writer, I think with the pandemic right now, it's been challenging to, I don't know, I as someone who's like worked with depression like my whole life, and like I was depressed before before all of this started, and like now trying to write and continuing to try to be productive, I feel like there's extra pressure on people in like creative industries to produce more, because
Right.
there's like, oh, you have all this
Because
time now, you
yep,
can
y-
like
you have time, and people
um
want it, and people want the
yeah,
content. What are they going to do? Mm.
yeah, but at the same time I hope like creative people, writers know that like you don't have to create if you can't um like if you there's so much pressure to create right now, and it's okay to be feeling like the like stress and anxiety of what's been going on, and there's a lot of terrible things happening, and it's on a level that's been unprecedented, and as a whole world we're experiencing this together, and that those effects are going to be felt for a long while.
There's a lot of comments. I just want to quickly here read through the local comments here in local chat. Writer, self-quarantine is normal, Wayamo says, but the anxiety being felt by the world around me impacts my productivity too. It's echoed here on the panel. Dada says everyone suddenly wanting to hop on Zoom all the time is an introvert's worst nightmare.
So true.
Yep. And we actually have Philip Rosedale in the house. Philip Rosedale, of course, the Philip, are you the co-founder of Second Life, the creator, the god? Shall we do a quick prayer here? Philip, it's good to see you, and please type in the chat how you feel about this increase in Second Life usership, so to speak, which I find fascinating. Um, like I said before, vis-a-vis Zoom or video chat, and also next generation immersive platforms and headset-based platforms, that this good old Second Life is working so well. Matt, do you have an appropriate? You said your novel The Mirage, which is an alternate history about the 9/11 attacks, where the attacks happened in the Arab world. It came out 2006, 2007. Is there
Well, no, actually, I started writing it in 2007. I think it came out in 2012. So,
2012? Oh yes, yes. So
um,
what's the appropriate time?
I mean, there is no appropriate time. It's just whenever you're ready. I just feel like, to me, I do a lot better when I think about what I want to say for a long time before I say it. I'm not, and I think there's an
I'm
impulse that a
completely
lot of
the
people
opposite.
have, especially if they're creative, to want to just react immediately. And you can get some great art that way, but you also get a lot of really thin and shallow art that way. And I'm not somebody who writes very quickly anyway, so I find it's better to sort of give it time and let other people go first and see what they're going to do. And often I will find something that I can say that will be original and different and actually have some depth. I think but that's just my way of working. Like, I don't want to discourage anybody. If you feel motivated to run right out and write something, then by all means.
The other thing that people may not realize if you're not in the publishing world is that even if you're not waiting, timelines can be really, really long. Like if I wrote, yeah, like anything I write right now, well, first of all, I have to write it, and that's going to take, some non-trivial amount of time. And then the publishing process is so long that it's going to be a couple of years before people see it, and we're going to be in a completely different social place, and who knows, how it'll all play out. But in terms of my work and how I address the pandemic or not, my main series, the Cass Russell series that Draxtor was talking about, is it's very contemporary. It's like one step into the future. It's sort of our world, but a little bit of the future, a little different. And yeah, it's really hard to think about, because to continue on with this and not mention it is that dishonest. But then if I don't want it to become like a huge plot point, what's the balance there? And the other thing that I think about a lot as a Chinese American and as somebody who's visibly Asian is how this is going to play out with the different Asian communities around the world, because here in the US we're already seeing some pretty intense racism and bigotry about this, and it's I think this might end up changing, how the world interfaces with me in kind of a profound way that will affect me very personally. And I don't know about places outside the U.S., but I've heard reports of this happening in Europe as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Here in Germany, a friend of mine from Vietnam originally, the mother has been harassed in public transportation. It's really depressing. It brings out the best and the worst.
Yeah. And so trying to sort of predict how that will play out, I don't know. And I don't know. It's actually quite a thing that's been taking up quite a lot of brain space for me. Like, how do we address this? Do we want to do it directly or metaphorically, or address it at all in this? Like my two books that are coming out this year were of course written before all this happened, so there will be no mention, but going forward, it's a very big open question for me, at least.
But I think your books.
I just thought I just want to follow up on what Lisa said. I totally get you. I mean, I feel the same way. It's I feel so anxious and so concerned. I mean, in some ways,
too, that's such a concern for children.
Yeah, I feel like, part of what's been so amazing to me in some ways is there's always been this unspoken assumption in a lot of sci-fi that when humanity is faced with a common threat, they would come together and put their differences aside. And what's been most shocking in some ways to me is how that is actually not at all what happened. What people are doing now is the first thing they want to do is to make sure that they are not going to be charged as responsible, and they don't want to face the anger of the public. So they must find a scapegoat and find someone else to blame. So the fact that hatred and blame and scapegoating is actually the most important and persistent reaction of governments around the world is kind of amazing to me. I guess, despite the way I write my stories, I've always been such an optimist in human nature, and seeing it play out in real life made me feel how naive I was in some ways. So
this is interesting because as a reader, I read you differently though. There's some really dark stuff in there. I mean,
I've always been deeply optimistic about human nature, and reality keeps on slapping me and telling me that I was wrong. So the reality is, I like Lisa, I don't feel like I can directly address any of this because it takes time. How can you possibly deal with it in the moment? So I feel in some ways I can no longer write the near future sci-fi I used to write, because how can I envision a world in which this is true, in which hatred is a persistent aspect of the way things are. And I kind of have to go back to writing fantasy and writing far future sci-fi in which I can deal with this in some kind of metaphorical way. That's my way of dealing with it.
Yeah. I have a few audio questions here. Karen asks, would it be a Kindle first publishing? How do you guys feel about Kindle first publishing? Yeah, that's an interesting question, and maybe that also plays into what Matt and I talked about, where he brought to my attention that Amazon has problems delivering because they are prioritizing food delivery, which is why I'm going to plug again bookshop.org, and I'm going to put the link here with the current books of all these authors. If you want to pick up their books, please go through bookshop.org. They give 75% of their profits to local bookstores. How do you guys feel about Kindle? In general, and then maybe specifically now with
I'm curious to hear what Lisa has to say, because I think she's had experience with this, right?
Yes, I came out of self-publishing and first, and before I got picked up by a publisher. So I have kind of complicated feelings about self-publishing. I'm incredibly glad it exists. I think it's provided an avenue for a lot of people who, were maybe not a good fit for the New York trade publishing world, and just a lot more avenues for people to get their creative work out there, which is great. I am so much less fond of Amazon as a company, as an entity, as a behemoth who is trying to take over the book world, essentially. And Amazon is also an extremely volatile vendor to have. As when I was self-publishing, Amazon was 95% of my book sales, and there's definitely the feeling of being at their whim. And they can just change terms anytime. And whenever things pivot in self-publishing, it always changes very fast. And needing to try to keep up with that and keep on top of that is really exhausting. The self-publishing world goes very fast. Most self-published writers who are successful publish, multiple books a year, are just incredibly fast writers, faster than I am. And I, in the end, I liked doing it. It taught me a lot. I'm really glad I did it. But in the end, I found working with a publisher to be a much better fit for me personally, mostly because I really like working with a team. I love having, like we were talking about publicists before, I'm an introvert. I'm bad at promoting myself, and having somebody who's there rooting for me and helping me. I love my editor. She's amazing. She makes the books more what I want them to be. I love everybody who's in production there. All of my, everybody, copy editors, proofreaders, my cover artists have all been amazing. And I love working as part of that team and having that support. So I am very worried about the book industry right now and how this is all going to play out, especially independent booksellers and all the knock-on effect that's going to have. I do think, things will change, and maybe there will be a prioritization of ebooks happening, but I don't know.
I strongly believe that when Matt jumps up and down on this sofa with his avatar, in a room full of 200 avatars, I'm convinced that this will sell books. But I'm also not in marketing. No, but I'm serious. I just want to again say to everyone, thank you guys for coming, audience and panelists. This is amazing. This is wonderful that we can celebrate our love for books here with a sense of presence. A quick shout out to Marianne McCann, who customized this venue that was built by Patch Linden and his moles. Strawberry, big thanks. She's running the camera. Brett from Linden Lab, big thanks for PR and security today. He is on the eject button. We didn't have a heckler yet. Matt, could you jump up? I'm sorry, I don't want to use you as a prop, but if you could jump up and down while I'm reading the thank yous. Big thanks to the authors and the publicists.
Brings me such joy to see.
And everyone who has submitted to requests. And I was actually also just told that the Patch Linden and the governance team, the entire governance team, is responsible here for. Oh wow! Look, he's wiggling while he's up and down.
It's just built in. I'm not even doing it.
This
Is
is
that-
skills. This
Is that lifting
really
your
skills.
spirits, Matt? Is your wife watching this on the YouTube stream?
Yeah, she is.
Very good. And I think next time we should all go out to the airship that Ken loves. There's actually an airship
Oh
battle.
yeah,
There's a
totally.
battle balloon game which is amazing. We should do that the next show on the battle balloon. Who did I forget? Well, everyone here in the audience, thank you guys for coming. Everybody who's watching this and everybody who has submitted requests for authors. We are being inundated with requests and ideas for topics. So this is wonderful. This is the first show, and we will continue this once a month, the first Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. But I'm already adding the second or the third Wednesday. Matter of fact, on April 29th, Lisa will come here to a one-on-one conversation. I hope that maybe Matt comes back and we'll do one-on-one, so maybe we can swap a
Sure.
panel to a one-on-one because it's a very different format.
It's so much fun.
Do you guys know each other, by the way? I mean, do you guys? This is a question that me as a reader is fascinating. Do you guys read other writers all the time to see what they're doing? Because I come
think I
from the
knew
music business, and
Lisa from the internet.
no, go ahead. Yeah, CB.
I said I think I knew Lisa from the internet, and I've like heard of everyone's else work, but I'm like excited to like meet everyone and like have so many more books to read. I'm really
Yeah.
excited to support everyone's work, especially everyone who has a book coming out this year.
I have some of Ken's books. I haven't read any of them yet.
I didn't want to put you on the spot, by the way.
that's
No,
the
no, no.
important
But
part. That's the
this is
important part.
this is
is
the
a
thing
question,
about
Matt.
being an author is that you have a very big stack of to be read, and
Oh, yeah.
no,
So many friends that I have yet to read. It's true, but
it's true. Buying them is the important part.
Yes,
Just buy them and
exactly.
put them out there. Yeah, exactly. Guys, do you hear that? You heard it here first. Just buy them, put them in the shelf. Guys, come on. And you arrange it in colors or, take nice photos, put them on Instagram. Who cares if you're reading them? I was going to ask Matt if what do you think of Ken's story, Byzantine Empathy, but okay.
I will tell you next
Wow,
time.
You
I
are really
can
putting me
wax
on the spot there.
I can wax for a very long time on Ken's stories. They're so good. If anybody hasn't read Ken, please definitely do. All of these authors, CB and Matt as well.
And please email me at slbookclub@draxtor.com if you have an idea for a show, if you have an author for a show. We're also going to include self-published Second Life authors. There's quite a few who are very good. I have a lot of their books in the shelf, and I actually did read them. The next big show is on May 6th with Laura Lamb, Anne Charnock, who is in the audience, by the way, Antoine Wilson, and Yvonne Battle Felton. And I think Yvonne is also in the audience. And the theme for the next show is reading fiction the ultimate empathy machine? And I got this from a tweet by Cory Doctorow, who I believe mentioned this on an interview with the CBC in Canada. And I read this and I go like, yes, I think it really is. That's what I personally strongly believe. If you believe otherwise, then just come to the show. And we have to move to a bigger venue. Make sure to visit bookshop.org. And we're coming up to the top of the hour. That doesn't mean we're going to just poof away, because it's audience Q&A time, and you guys can put questions in local chat, please, because we have the stream, the audio on the stream is not from SL Voice, so I'm going to read them. Now, in closing, can you imagine? And we kind of touched on this a little bit. Here's now I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you? I'm a big publisher. And actually, I thought about this because Matt told me also that he's afraid of answering the same, saying the same thing over and over because they do so many interviews. And I think everybody has that problem who does a lot of interviews. So I was racking my brain. How can I ask a question that Matt has never been asked before? And also that he didn't answer himself on his excellent blog, where he also puts the wonderful musical inspiration, by the way, of his books there. So here's my question, Matt. I'm a big publisher, and I'm going to give you in advance of $1 million, not Linden dollars, real US dollars. If you can pitch me a positive short story right now, a positive short story that comes out of the knowledge of what we're going through right now, yeah, kind of a utopian thing that will give people hope as they come out of this crisis and still sort of suffer from the repercussions, as we mentioned. I mean, it's PTSD, I would say. So let me actually give you guys 10 seconds to come up with an idea.
Oh, there you go.
Listen, we here in Silicon Valley, where the Second Life was hatched, there's a 12-second elevator pitch. So I mean, this is how the millions of dollars they change hands like that. And in the meantime, I'm going to put the bookshop.org link again into the local chat. This has all the books of today's authors in here. It's a reading list, and I'll update that reading list. Who wants to go first with a story idea? Anybody? This is a third grade
perfect.
classroom. This is a third grade classroom. So kids, how about
I'll go. I think my $1 million book idea. I have been sort of toying with the idea of writing something about human connectivity. In a world where we can't touch. We're not. I like being able to have tactility with my friends, and so obviously consensual everything, but and I'm just talking both platonically and intimately. This is not everybody has the same levels of tactility that they want in their lives, but it can be very important for a lot of people, and for a lot of human feeling and human relationships. And I like to explore everything through a sci-fi lens, so I would probably bend that through science fiction in some way, and showing that we can achieve that even if we can't physically be in the same space as each other.
Mm-hmm. And Karen here in the chat says, story about a real life virus that crosses over to the virtual reality world. I saw that on CSI in 2007 where somebody was playing Second Life and they got murdered. No, that's actually for real. You can look this up. Really goofy storyline. When Second Life was at the top of the hype days, at the CSI people go like, how can we involve that? Oh yeah, somebody's playing Second Life, but he gets murdered in real life and then his avatar disappears. Maureen
I feel
said,
like I read that book.
yeah.
I can't remember what book though.
It's CSI with Gary Sinise. I don't know if it's CSI New York. I forgot what it was. Vayamo says computer viruses transmitted via keyboard. People with 404 errors. Government posing as virus blocker, but too late. Oh, Philip Rosedale says here, one of my favorite phone calls was with the creator of CSI pitching that show. I actually have a little reportage about that. Anybody else with a story? Anybody wants to volunteer? You don't have to.
I've been thinking about this thing where in the conversation about the coronavirus, where it's like it's not a big deal if old people die, and I've been sort of it's not really a story yet, but I've just been thinking about it. Would be great to tell the story about somebody who's old enough to know they're going to die soon and is maybe a hitman or something in some situation where he would be expected to die soon and then just keeps refusing to go, even as other people. So it'd be like, yeah, I don't know. Imagine if Anton Chigurh were from Country for Old Men were like 80 but did not ready to lay down yet. So something like that. So that's not exactly cheerful and not necessarily cheerful, but well, it would be cheerful in my sense of cheerful, realistic,
you can
but also
always
optimistic.
You can always go with the Weekend at Bernie's approach. So there's your
Weekend at Bernie's, the virus edition. Oh yeah, this reminds me of a Joe Haldeman story. I think I gotta look this up. There's something similar to what Matt said. And by the way, it just occurred to me, if you maybe you're hesitant in sharing your ideas because is that actually a concern? That when you talk about ideas in public or with other writers, like stand-up comedians are really, I think, very concerned about that people steal their jokes. Is that an
Nah,
issue in the writer community?
execution is what matters.
Yeah.
exactly.
Same with music. Yep.
But
Got it.
as a high risk person, I love Matt's idea because I've been like, I feel it personally whenever anybody says, "Oh, it's just those people will die." That's me. You're scoffing at that, and I feel it as if they're talking to me.
There's
Some very specific.
CB, one second before, because the chat is moving very fast. Vayamu says next time what he would like to see is that authors actually read favorite passages from their works and what they mean. That's a great idea. I'll try to weave that in and prep that. And what else? Oh yeah, Philip Rosedale is clarifying that he remembers the CSI guys pitching the story to him to actually do it in Second Life. There was also a simultaneous role-playing tie-in with when that aired, and I think I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people came into SL like the minute the commercials came on CSI. Sorry, CB, go ahead.
No, I was chiming in on the story ideas and what people were pitching as, I think it definitely opens up a lot of specific questions on how our society handles, like, who do we consider expendable? Who do we consider,
Yeah.
how does the government respond? How they are responding? And while it's not something I would want to tackle now, like probably at a much more removed date, it's, we're already seeing like, the conversations about like, oh, like which lives are worth saving, which is a conversation to have, but exploring it in a story format could be a way to highlight it. I think there's definitely stories there.
You're putting that you guys are really sort of this is what shocks me is how fast sort of the social norms seem to be shifting, that this is even in the conversation, that people really feel it's appropriate to put into the conversation that certain people are expendable.
Well, and it's very like, when we look at like who's considered essential workers, and these are people who are putting themselves at risk helping everyone get groceries and stuff, and yet at the same time these were the same people that people were snubbing for like asking for more than minimum wage, and you're like, what, they should be paid more. They should be, I think the pandemic reveals a lot of things that were broken about our world that are just becoming more apparent.
Right. We have a question here or a comment from Cindy in the YouTube chat. I'm not a writer or anything, but how about living with coronavirus? The difference between, say, over 40-year versus the younger generation that is used to living in a distant social world. This is interesting. Cindy is sort of expressing here, I guess, that younger people have less of a problem with digital communication. I mean, my son has his friends on his multiplayer games. He, as far as he is concerned, or as far as I can see, of course, they miss hanging out in the park, but he's not completely isolated. And you do see older folks who are not that technology savvy. Although I wouldn't say this breaks down along age lines. I'm working on a documentary about an 83-year-old woman who is very active in Second Life. But yeah, that's just a comment from Cindy. Any other questions here from the local audience? Any closing comments from you guys? Will you guys be back in Second Life, or will you delete your account and wipe the keyboard?
Oh, I love Second Life. You're not getting rid of me so easily.
I know. And hey, Lisa, I apologize. I was fixing your avatar and I'm looking at you. You have still this is totally my fault that your forearm is sliced. So if people look at Lisa and think she cannot handle a sword because she sliced her own forearm, let me just say this is my fault entirely, right? I was in charge here of fixing.
No worries.
So the current books are here all on the table. The current releases, Matt's 88 Names, and Lisa's Critical Point, then CB's Not Your Backup, and Ken's The Hidden Girl and Other Stories. We can throw around these books here, not the ones on the table, but you can grab the ones on on the floor here. Here's Bad Monkeys that my wife is currently reading, Matt's book. And
Oh, I actually have a question for the panel if we want to discuss. I've been thinking about this. When you're in the middle of something momentous like this, it's very easy to overestimate how much things will change. But it's also very possible that you're underestimating the long-term changes, meaning a decade or so down the road. I mean, it's sort of like right after 9/11, people were worried about whether people will feel safe about flying ever again. But very few people were concerned or foresaw that the U.S. would be involved in forever wars.
Well, Bin
so
Laden kind of saw that coming. Sorry.
Right. So it's the sort of the thing where I wonder if all of us are sort of foreseeing changes in the short term, overestimating them, but then there are things in the long range that we're not seeing. I mean, I wonder if people have thoughts on what we think actually will change after all of this.
That's a really great question. The panel, you want to respond? That's a great point here, Ken. Thank you.
I've actually also been thinking about that a lot, and I think that's a really, really good question. This is one reason that I even though we're all sort of social distancing right now, so we're not maybe seeing it as a huge sea change, but it's one reason I do worry about the racism that might come out of this, because I feel like when that was a big result of 9/11 that maybe people didn't predict right away is how we treat the Arab American and the Muslim American communities in our country, and it's tragic, and it's still ongoing.
Yep.
And I don't know how that gets changed or attacked, and mitigated, because this is 20 years out, and it's still such a huge and tragic problem. And the other thing that I have thought about a lot in terms of changes that we're not talking about a lot right now is surveillance technology and government power. And things like when we finally get testing off, better off the ground, contact tracing stuff. This can require some invasion of privacy, and how much we give up and maybe don't get back.
We gave up a lot after 9/11 too. Those are excellent points, Lisa.
Yeah, because like airport security, you look at that. That's
I mean, I've been pushing here the bookshop.org because I'm really, really psyched about these guys, and they've probably been working on this for a while, and now they're coming into this sort of void, and it's marvelous. But my wife and I have been discussing that this could go either way. This could strengthen, for example, some local farms and delivery services. So we've been ordering here locally. There's a new service that is also coordinating local farms, right? And so it could go this way. People could realize how important that is. But of course, most people are ordering from Amazon, and it strengthens, again, this type of monopoly. So with all the stuff that you said, Lisa and Ken, I'm worried about those same things, but I'm also worried about either the increase in monopolization or the good thing that could have come out of it. This would be my pitch. This would be my utopian pitch, that we're all just ordering from. Everything is becoming a co-op. This is Draxtor's utopia. I should jump up.
I like your utopia. If we have more localism and more anti-fragility, that would be a good thing.
There's your $1 million story idea right there.
And that's why I'm jumping up and down. By the way, who was playing with those books here on the ground? Who is shifting these books around? Who was that? I know. Look closely here. These books are coming in. This is a shell game. Who is doing this? Oh, Bunny is doing that from the audience. No, Matt is doing it. Oh, who?
No, not at the moment.
Oh.
I need to gain some Second Life skills so I can do magic too.
Oh yeah. I will give you a tutorial. Okay, let's wrap up this program. Thank you guys. This was absolutely fantastic. Again, big shout out Marianne McCann. Also, t-shirts are on the way out. There are book club shirts. Strawberry, awesome camera work. Brett, security and PR. Patch, the governance team, and I have wonderful authors here who supply me with so much joy, and I'm proud to say I do not have a Netflix subscription, and I'm not going to get one. I'm going to hack it to my sons. No, but guys, read. Okay, take this lockdown and read. It will make you feel better. And echoing what Ken put forward here with the long term effects. Shut off that TV and get off of the constant stream on social media that will not serve you well. It will just increase the anxiety. I'm not suggesting you should be totally get off the grid and not pay attention to the news, but it's different to consume something that has context as opposed to something that just keeps regurgitating and the same thing with nuanced differences that will just make you more anxious. That's been the Second Life Book Club. Strawberry is in charge of the stream. Thank you very much. I'm going to stick around here a little bit. What we're going to stop the stream, and the stream will be archived on the Second Life YouTube channel and on Facebook, youtube.com/Second Life. And I will also put the audio version on the Drax Files podcast on Monday. That is it. Draxtor out. And Luca was actually asking a question here. But we can cut here, Strawberry.